Well, good afternoon, everyone. I guess we'll go and get started. Thank you all so much for coming. I really intended this to be a discussion. As luck would have it, I don't have the right HDMI cable. This is an old serial cable. So slide projection will not be occurring. So I think it will foster our discussion. Or we may turn it around and hand off the laptop when we want to see it.
How about somebody got a cord?
Michelle's gone to look, but anyways, I guess that was an oversight on my part. I didn't even know that they made. I didn't know that they made those anymore. So anyways, if you'll bear with us. So the idea behind this talk was that at this meeting and so many other meetings, we spend time talking about research. Obviously, it's important, has been important, will continue to be important in the agricultural enterprise, but how often do we talk about ways to make it better? And so the premise is we're not going to solve the problems here, and we may identify some issues. I think we'll identify issues that we know are kind of perennial. But the idea was so much effort, resources, time goes into it. Are there things that we can do to learn from our mistakes and share them in going forward? And so if I could show you this picture, I don't know if you know Dan Freiberg. He's a consultant, and it's kind of like show and tell. It's a small room. Small room. Dan Freiberg is a consultant from Des Moines, Iowa, and he's. Yeah. Did you get one? Adapter. Good for you. Michelle always comes through. And I don't know if you saw her talk at that's a big one. Oh, let's see. Yeah, we'll work.
Does it work?
Yeah, well, awesome. Thank you. Her talk the last session, she summarized a very difficult set of data better than I think anyone possibly could. So kudos to Michelle. Awesome. Well, I think that we may have slides. Would someone like to be working with this and see? And I'll just keep on talking.
So you're in front of this.
Yeah, you've got to put up your laptop.
Move your laptop.
Yeah. You know, I've stood with the laser pointer before like this. Everybody in the room could see what was happening but me. So this is perfect for me. I know he's
You keep talking.
Okay.
Let the engineer take care of it.
Okay. Get back. That's a scary thought, but okay. So anyways, Dan Freiberg, great consultant, been heavily involved in precision ag for many years, has commented, maybe you've seen it with Ag Data Expo or conferences, talked about how universities can conduct dozens of trials per year, but collectively, farmers can literally conduct hundreds on their farm. And of course, he's talking a lot about the strip trials, such as this one here, that's being conducted on a field with and without cover crops. And obviously, lots of useful information can come from those. There is, however, increasing levels of investment, and the Cotton Discovery Farm and other discovery farms have been presented at this meeting a number of times. You can see that huge flume that's being installed on Steve Stevens' farm. That's a different level of commitment, of resources, etc. I think most of you know Big Mike, and that's over those discovery farms. Also, Michelle just talked about the study last period on our work with the Sullivans at Floridan Farms. And as she indicated, we have a number of instruments. It was a multiple-year study. It involved some of her work with the eddy covariance, which in and of itself is a very complicated. So when we talk about replicating and doing dozens of trials or hundreds of trials, we're also talking about different levels of investment. But at any scale or scope, farm-based research requires time and resources, and it's never going to be hassle-free, and it requires flexibility on all parts. So in talking with Jason, Jason said when he goes out to a field, if it's important to get the data, then he's just going to assume right off the bat that 50% are going to fail. That seems like a high number. I mean, I think we've all experienced failures. And again, the investment in time and the need for the information, the idea here is, can we begin a discussion or share ideas on how to maybe reduce that rate of failure? And then, if nothing else, identify common issues. There are some successes that have been reported upon at this conference. I got one, thank you, appreciate it, thank you very much. Justin Delaney was an early adopter of MIRI and AWD, alternating wetting rice flood management, and in 2014 he asked at a meeting if AWD is covered by crop insurance. Crop insurance increasingly important, as we all know, and it was determined, it isn't. It isn't covered, and had been doing it for quite a while. So that question and some of his farm-based data culminated in AWD being eligible for crop insurance beginning this 2020 season. I'm sure that Jason, Jared Harkey, and others talking about that. And the same is true for row rice. So now we have some of our newer irrigation methods going to be covered by crop insurance. And my point there is that all required field data, preferably farmer data, was highly preferred, right, Jason?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we had multiple years of AWD research. That's what I'm most familiar with as compared to row, and really, but from a relatively small number of farmers. And yet, I think this is an important step as we move forward in increasing, the underpinning infrastructure that we need for our ag enterprise, which an important part of that is crop insurance. 5-year deliberation period, I have no idea if that's a normal time period or if it was hampered by the lack of data. Jason was involved in that as well, and I know it kind of went on for a while. I have no idea. I'd like to think that if we'd had more data for more farms, it would have been faster. Another success story that's been reported here are the first ever rice carbon credits issued to rice farmers, one of which was Mike Sullivan, who's also in this room. So that was a process. Again, they were issued in 2017. Carbon credits issued to 5 U.S. Rice farmers, 3 of which were in Arkansas. That was a 4-year process, quite laborious. There's pretty unanimous opinion that in terms of the price that the farmers got for those credits, it was I think Mike still has the check. In fact, it was
whopping $200.
$200. But it made carbon credits go through the compliance mark in California, which is the strictest in the nation. And it was really done to show that it could be done, and they did it. It took a lot of work on the part of producers, consultants, researchers, non-governmental organizations, and others. And again, that was farmer data-driven process. It also points to changes in the ag world, the importance of the consumer interested in sustainability. And so my point is farm data is important, has been important, I think continues to be important. Another success story is the work that I think that Jason has been doing with getting economics of irrigation water management. He's really doing a fantastic job of getting more economics on the practices. That's something that I in particular have been very poor at doing. And he's also done that by working with farmers that are not at the tip top of the adoption curve. It's very easy for us. We typically work with these innovators, early adopters, such as the Sullivans, such as the Whitakers, and others, the Matthews of the groups. But in order to foster adoption, we have to learn how to work with folks that are maybe not, for whatever reason, for any reason, making no judgments as to why. They just don't tend to be the early adopters and innovators. But to get more conservation adopted, Jason's also been working further downstream. Any quick comments on that?
No, just, when you work for the Land Grant University, when they hired me in an extension role, I mean, the aim was to develop conservation production practices and that worked. And that was what a lot of times your bosses at the Land Grant, really, they may not even know what work meant. And so I define work meaning that improved yield and net returns. Yield was like producers brag about yield at the coffee shop. It's not polite in our culture to talk about money, really, but and the bank, a lot of times I was told that they're really kind of going on their yield potential at the farm, not their net return potential, unfortunately. So I mean, that's why we went for yield, we went for net returns, and then third, the environmental parameter, because I'd worked with so many bright scientists that had worked on so many systems that really worked from a conservation standpoint, but they really didn't improve the net returns, and so they were not adopted in a quasi-free market like we have in the United States. So
One correction to that, I would, if I had money, I would talk about it, but I don't. You talk about what you want. So this is a little bit I wanted to throw in, it's really been on my mind, it won't take that long to explain, and it kind of relates to what we're talking about here, like with the work that Jason has done, but bear with me, this is kind of hypothetical. It's talking about the need of moving the needle and getting additional adoption with better economics data and recognizing that there's a range of capabilities and abilities to do things. And some of the things that we're asking going forward require more of the farmer. And there's been slow adoption of certain things that a lot of people say, well, it's a great practice, it's become my standard, such as multiple inlet rice irrigation is a practice that's really been there for a long time, taking a while. So this is the hypothetical data that I wanted to propose. Let's just say that whatever the practice is, it could be cover crops, that early adopters, innovators, when there's on-farm work and it shows, you know what, they can make this work, they can make $15 an acre. The early majority, whoever they are, it's kind of a break-even thing. But the late majority, you know, it's a money loser. And if we're asking why do they not adopt it, if we keep focusing on the early adopter innovators, showing that they can make it work, but the bulk can't, it might suggest, you know, the need to broaden our base. And I'm not saying that's that original. I'm just trying to get my brain around, you know, the reality that economics drive this process, and are we collecting the right data, and do we need to broaden who we work with? And so that's the idea. So discuss ways to broaden participation in on-farm research so that we are sure to be capturing the representative and impactful data that we need going forward. So that's kind of the premise of the talk. With that, I was going to turn it over to the panel. Ryan Moore was a consultant that works very closely with Ryan and Mike Sullivan. He was unable to attend. Rob Dedman is a consultant with Jim that is works very closely together as a team, and he is unable to attend. So unfortunately, we don't have the consultant's voice, although I do have some notes from Ryan, and I think that Jim may also comment. I don't know if I kind of laid out the premise, but with that, I'd like to see